Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Now let's turn to earnings this morning. The Swedish aero and defense company Saab had hit a fresh record this morning, a touch off of that after reporting earnings. Joining us now is the CEO, Micael Johansson. Micael, thanks for joining us this morning. I do want to get to your earnings, but I have to start with this IT outage, considering it has to do with cybersecurity software. And as a defense company, obviously this is something you're acutely aware of and keeping track of. I just want to start this. Is it impacting your systems at all this morning?
We're looking into it, but so far we haven't seen an effect at all. But of course, we take this seriously and we are continuously monitoring it. But I don't have any details. I haven't seen anything that has affected us yet.
How do you think about this moment in terms of the vulnerability of industry's cybersecurity networks? Obviously, as a defense company, this is very important to you to build the type of industry that so many countries need. Does this show some underlying fragility, an issue with the supply chain?
Well, of course, and we need to continue to work on this sort of zero trust approach of things, which is more about how you protect your information over time and how data-centric you become rather than to protect the fort of information, so to say. And this we discussed during the summit in D.C. last week, and there are solutions going in that directions. So you have to be able to interact at the same time as going into a cloud sort of based information set up. You have to work on the zero trust approach, which I think there are many companies going in that direction. But this is something we take really seriously and working diligently upon. So it's an important area going forward. But without the zero trust approach, I think it will be difficult.
Is there a concentration risk, the fact that this is all stemming just from one company?
I think so far I think it's more about the architecture and how the service-based approach will look like. To be agnostic, you have to be able to work with several different suppliers, of course, and you have to certify them, and they have to prove that they are as certified and reassured as we are on our system. So we haven't selected anyone yet. We're looking into this, so we will see what happens going forward.
Micael, obviously, if this hadn't have happened this morning, we would have started by talking about your earnings. Let's go there next, because you did have a very high order book. And I wonder where you see us in the defense spending cycle. Is it a moment that's about to ramp up, or are we somewhere near a peak?
I don't think we're near a peak at all. I think we're looking at growth in the next coming 10 years. Look at the need for the support to Ukraine, but also the replenishment of stock and capabilities in the European countries, which are now spending more and more on defense, and also increasing capabilities at the same time. So there will be, I think, lots of growth going forward, and we have just started the last 2 years to take these steps. And I'm afraid we're not doing enough. I think there will be more has to be done. So this is more like a paradigm shift than anything else.
You know, the Sweden's defense minister only a few months ago said that this is a challenge that's being felt across Europe right now in terms of the lack of defense capabilities, that we have a defense industry base shaped for a peacetime situation. So what's necessary to change? What needs to happen to get things in the right place when there is a hot war in Europe happening right now?
Well, we as industries are investing a lot as we speak, of course, but these things, that's long-term commitments over sort of mandate periods for politicians, are important to take the really big steps, to really build the new facilities, to invest in automation, to take the big investments. We're getting there, but I would say that to realize that this is really a paradigm shift rather than incrementally taking small steps, which is difficult for industry to refer to relate to when you take big investments decision, is probably the most important thing. Then, of course, if EU, for example, takes a big decision to together put lots of money in an initiatives like the European Defence Industrial Programme that has been discussed, like we did when the pandemic hit us, then of course if we put a lot of money there, then collaboration and big programs and alignment of requirements will happen. But these things must be implemented to make sort of taking the big steps. But long-term commitments is important to us from governments while we are taking risks as industry and investing.
I mean, there are certainly more prospects for disruption, and one of them might come from the U.S., not just European hot wars, but of the growing likelihood of a second term for former President Trump. And the language that him and his vice president have been using are certainly more isolationist, of not necessarily being willing, for example, to help Ukraine. If the U.S. does drop out as a supporter of Ukraine in supplying weapons to supplying defense systems, is Europe ready to pick up the slack?
I would say that Europe has to, that's the most important thing, that Europe has to realize that they have to take a bigger responsibility going forward, to invest more money into this. And I saw the summit last week. I attended it myself to see that so many countries now within the alliance are now seeing 2% as a floor, and many are going further than that. And the support of Ukraine with a $40 billion support going forward the next year, and the coordination from NATO now supporting Ukraine. I think that's great initiatives. Meanwhile, I mean, Europe continue to step up, do it more quickly, and we have to sort of work with that independently of administration in the U.S. And the transatlantic link is really important, but we have to be more sovereign as a European continent when it comes to the defense and deterrence and resilience.
Okay, Micael, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Micael Johansson, Saab Group CEO.